Welcome back, everybody, to His Heartbeat, and back again with another great guest, Lisa Steven. I always want to add an S to that because my mom, she remarried. Her last name is Stevens with an S. You probably get
Always
that a
the
lot.
way.
I
Yes, I
know.
get that a lot.
But hey, it's fun to be one of a kind. So there you go. Yeah, so love to hear where you're from, a little bit about yourself to start off our time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you. So I am super excited about the recent publication of my book, A Place to Belong, which tells a little bit of my story as well as the story of Hope House, Colorado. So for a little background on me, have been born and raised in Denver, been in Denver my whole life. Grew up in a family that was fairly dysfunctional. My dad was an alcoholic and didn't work a whole lot. And when I was in elementary school, we lost my younger brother who died in a backyard accident. And just my parents were already kind of a wreck, but that tragedy really kind of put them over the edge. And so
Yeah.
their marriage didn't last a lot longer after that. So I basically grew up kind of seeking order and some where I really found it was going to church with my grandma. She went to a Lutheran church and it was very orderly and everything happened according to, it was kind of liturgical, which I didn't know the word back then. But it seemed like I felt like God must live at church because at church it's very orderly and he must not live
Oh,
at my house
oh.
because at my house there isn't order. And so I grew up with just a kind of a heart for running after God, primarily because I was looking for order and stability and structure, and ended up meeting a boy when I was a teenager. And his name is John. We're still married today, but we met when we were 16 and got pregnant when we were 17 and got married right within 2 weeks of finding out that we
Wow.
were pregnant. My wedding proposal was, well, what are you doing 2 weeks from Friday? When we were sitting in the car outside of the
Oh,
clinic where we found out that we were pregnant. So I was we were teenage parents. Our son is 38 years old now. We have two additional grown children and three little granddaughters who are the light of my life. And that really was that's kind of the background story in a nutshell of why I have a heart for teenage moms. And then we can talk a little bit more about Teen Mops, or now Mops is called the Mom Co. But we have a tie-in to Mops as well with our teen moms.
yeah, it's so funny. That whole thing, something co, is like becoming a thing, right?
It's a
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I've been hearing it in other organizations, but hey, I'm not going there yet. Yeah, so you really had a heart because you came out of a teenage pregnancy, right? You were a
Yes.
teenager at the time. And what kind of challenges did you find in that?
Yeah, so really, I will say for now, Hope House, Colorado works with teenage moms who almost all of our mamas are coming out of generational poverty. I came from a more middle class background, even though I, we had a lot of chaos in my home. We really had more of a middle class background, meaning that the middle class really values education, going on to further education, savings, retirement. Like we're planners. Generational poverty is not so much that way. And so it has been a journey to learn about generational poverty. But what I will say I faced as a teenage mom is the same, whether you're in the middle class, the poverty class, or the wealth class. If you are a pregnant teenager or a parenting teenager, it is so much judgment. There's so much
Mm.
shame and stigma. And if you are involved with a church, oftentimes you're shunned from that church. It could be something as simple as walking into a grocery store and you've got your baby on your hip and someone's looking at you like, are you their mom or their sister?
Hmm.
And when they realize you're the mom, just the look on their face, and that's the
Hmm.
kind sort of judgment. There are lots of really hard stories about the way teenage moms are treated at the doctor's office. Or I had one incident where when I was 18, I took my son to the clinic and to get his shots. And the doctor was very clearly displeased with the fact that I was a teenage mom. And about 2 weeks later, I get a knock on my door, and the doctor had reported us to social services, totally made up a lie that my son had scratches on him and that he maybe had a neurological disorder or something going on. And so social services came to find out. And very fortunately, my son woke up at 6 months from his nap in a happy mood and just flirted away with this social worker. But the minute she left the house, I just fell apart because as a teenage mom, you have no agency over your own life. You have very little power over your own life. And I mean, as far as I knew, that woman could have walked into my home and walked out with my son.
Yeah,
And maybe that wasn't exactly how the order of those types of things go, but it is how I felt. And so that's an example of just really harmful judgment and stigma around being a teen parent and the way that you're often looked at.
which is so sad because we're all pushing for people to not have an abortion.
Hmm.
And but then okay, then we have to take responsibility in our community to really love and care for those that choose not to, but are really in a difficult position, whether it's because of their age or because of their poverty or because they have to work full time and
Right,
whatever it is, or that child has special needs and that's overwhelming for them.
right.
Yeah. So tell us more about the Hope House, how that came to be and what you do.
Yeah, so how it came to be, I mean, obviously I have a heart for teenage moms, having been one, but it was never my intention to start an organization to serve teenage moms. That apparently was God's plan, and I had other plans in my mind. I really felt like, at some point I would go to college. I never did, never have gone to college, and still don't even know how to type. My background is literally doing home daycare and working at J.C. Penney's. So I had no business thinking I could somehow start a nonprofit that today is a $5 million organization, and there is no way that we would be where we are today if it weren't for God and Him calling us into being and just surrounding me with the most amazing people to help me on the journey and make His call a reality. So we started Hope House because I was volunteering with a group called again Teen Mops, or now the Mom Co, Teen Mom Co. And so I was working with teenage moms in this support group setting and just loved working with them. They are so beautiful. They had such, then and now, such grit and determination and such a deep desire to do something different for their little one. And because MOPS works with parenting mothers, these mamas all had their child already. So they weren't in the process of making a birth decision. They were already parenting, and they were so, so motivated by their children. They wanted to be a good mom in the worst way, and they had literally had no example growing up of what that meant. They didn't have anybody in their life that was married. They had never eaten dinner at the dinner table. They went to bed and ran around at all times of the night with their children because that's how their community worked. And they just had no concept of how to build a healthy home life because they literally had never seen it done. But that doesn't mean they didn't want it. So these moms would come to our Teen Mops group and just soak it up. Like, oh, if I read to my baby, they'll do better in school. Well, how do I get books? And this kind of ties back to generational poverty. So in generational poverty, these mamas have never been inside of a library. They've never been inside of a bank. They have very limited interaction with what we consider just the institutions of our society. They have limited interaction with those institutions, and so they just don't know what will help their child, and they're so eager to learn. So that Teen Mops group was really the catalyst for, these girls I remember we had one mom named Liz who the day she turned 18, her mother moved out and moved into an apartment 3 doors down from her and said, well, you're 18, I'm done with you. You're off the payroll and good luck. And of course, this young mom is still in high school. She ended up having to drop out of high school to get a job at Subway. She still couldn't pay the rent. She ended up not being able to stay in the apartment. She was evicted. She had no family besides her mom, who wouldn't let her move in 3 doors down. She ended up moving into a woman who she'd met somehow through her work at Subway, moved into this woman's home while this woman's son was cooking meth in the basement. And
Oh,
Liz had no idea that that was the case until they were raided in the middle of the night one night, and everybody was arrested, including Liz. and
Oh,
her daughter was placed in short-term foster care. This is the type of like spiral that happens when our mamas have no support and they literally have nowhere to go. So that was one of the stories that caused us to start looking at who's doing housing for teenage moms in the metro area. Like Liz just needed a safe place to belong. And there wasn't anybody. There literally was no housing for parenting teenage moms. And still today, we're the only home in the entire state of Colorado that serves parenting teenage moms that isn't a residential treatment facility where you're court ordered. So it just, there was nothing for them. All of the homes were maternity homes where you could go if you were pregnant and making a birth decision. But then you could only stay for like 3 to 6 months after. Like you mentioned, I mean, we want them to have their baby, but then we're not providing support long term for them to make change in their life. And so that's really why Hope House started. We began as a residential home for just six young mamas and their kiddos. And today we serve 265 teen moms and their children on a 3-acre campus in Arvada, Colorado. We still just have that one residential home with the room for six moms and their kiddos. We have a 15,000 square foot resource center where we do the vast majority of our programming. And that's all of our educational programming. So we offer GED in high school, college and career support, financial literacy, and legal advocacy support. And then on the personal side, we offer counseling and personal growth classes and healthy relationships classes. Then we have a housing support program. So we help about 160 moms with finding placement in one of our partner organizations or just helping them navigate a lease. Like, what am I reading? I don't understand this language. What am I agreeing to? We serve our moms until they turn 25. So we also offer coursework for buying a home because some of our older moms are closer to being interested in buying a home. And then our third program is our early childhood education program. We just opened a licensed child care center on our campus to serve 100 of the children of our teen moms with full-time care so mom can go to school and work full-time.
yeah, that was my thing. I was curious when they come to take these classes, do you have babysitting for them?
Yeah, what we started out offering babysitting years and years ago and then realized, gosh, if we're going to babysit, we should do some early learning, not
Yeah,
just do
that's what
babysitting.
I
And so
wondered.
we have an on-site program inside our resource center where moms can leave their kids for up to 3 hours at a time, which is the licensing parameter in Colorado. And mom has to stay here on site in the resource center while she's, going to class. Kiddos can be in care, but she needs to be on site doing her coursework. So that's why we opened the Early Learning Center. That just opened 1 month ago after a successful capital campaign. But it's a priority that they have the opportunity to go to school and work full time. And in Colorado, across much of our nation, we have a huge issue with a lack of childcare, but Colorado is really considered a childcare desert across our whole state. After COVID, we had so many childcare centers closed that we have only one spot available for every 3 children who need one.
Hmm.
And almost none of those spots are eligible for CCAP, which is the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program. So our entire center, 100 spots, are CCAP eligible. So our moms essentially pay a portion of their childcare fee and then CCAP or the state pays the rest.
Okay. So you obviously have to have several employees doing all
Yeah,
this training and whatnot.
52 at this point with the new
Wow.
center.
Okay. And so is that through donations that you're able to fund them, or does the government help
Yeah,
some?
yeah, so we call this kind of our secret mission. So our mission, of course, is our teenage moms and their little ones, but our secret mission and the mission of our heart is our champions. We call our donors champions because they are champions of our mamas. And for our moms, the folks who were designed to care for them and invest in them, their families either can't or won't. So our champions really are that they are making the investment into these young women, believing that they can do it, that they can break that cycle of poverty. And the very fact that they believe in our moms means more than the money. Like that just melts their hearts and fills them with so much hope that there are people out there that care enough to invest in their future and wouldn't be giving money if they didn't believe they could do it. So about 80% of our budget is fundraised. Um, and the other pieces are through CCAP, that Child Care Assistance Program.
That's really cool. I was just thinking of like a couple examples when I was in China, there was a woman who she had come to the US, okay, because she was being sought out, I guess, by the political section for I don't know, whatever her faith and whatnot. And so she started an organization where they would basically go and people from the inside would go to villages and say that they'd find pregnant women, right? Or find they go to the village who's pregnant. They go to their houses and say, if you deliver this child to full term, we will we will help you financially and in other ways to support for 1 full year.
Mm,
So it was
that's
really,
beautiful.
I know, it was really cool and very risky business, but they did that. And
Yes.
then when I was in Uganda, I was with my husband, my daughter, and the we were going through uh, Campus Crusade. It's called Life Ministry there,
Yes.
working with them, and they took us to a center where the girls were like 13 and 14 and had given birth, and
Yeah.
so their parents kicked them out, and so often the case was they were actually raped by their fathers, so out of shame,
So yeah,
yeah, they just
we actually
left.
have a sister program in Uganda called Subi House. Their maternity program is called Mirembe House, and it's very much what you just said. They're an uncle raped them or something terrible, and
Yeah,
then they get kicked out, and they literally have nowhere to go. And it's so crazy to me that God fills the hearts of people to love and serve teen moms all over the world. Like it's not
yeah,
just in Colorado or, in the
I
United
know.
States, but I believe God has a soft spot for teen moms because they sort of are both widows and orphans. They don't typically have parents and they don't typically have, a spouse or boyfriend that has stayed around. So I think they're kind of both the widow and the orphan for him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was beautiful. It's like one woman that had a heart to do this, and she tries to
Mm.
get funds for it, and she has nurses there and women, and they
Oh,
educate them. My daughter shared her testimony. She felt, Mom, who am I to share this? I'm like, hey, it'll encourage them, just your walk with
right.
Jesus, because she was like 16 or 15, I think, at the time.
I
But
love
of
it.
course, it's very eye-opening for her as well. Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the more about the needs of these young women. Um, you had talked about they're coming out of generational poverty. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so and it's not like I knew what this was when we started working with teen moms. I'd never even heard the term. I didn't really understand. And so through the years and with a lot of training, we've definitely come to understand generational poverty on a deep level. And if anybody's interested in learning more, the best resource is Ruby Payne, who wrote a book called Bridges Out of Poverty and runs an organization called the AHA Institute. And they really help folks understand sort of the differences between the poverty class, the middle class, and the wealth class, and how we really have different value systems. So in the middle class, we have, that value system of uh, going to further education, having a career, getting to retirement, owning your own home. In the poverty class, it's much more, and we all have relationship as a value, all the classes do. But in the poverty class, relationship is so central, it's almost traded on as if it were money. So relationships are critical because you can't go to school if your mom won't watch your child. You might need to go to an appointment to get your food stamps, but your neighbor will watch your child for you to go do that, but only if then you'll watch the neighbor's child or give the neighbor a ride somewhere that they need to go. So because relationships are so critical, they're very, very difficult to set aside for a little while. And oftentimes, in order to break out of poverty, you really have to set aside unhealthy relationships, at least for a little while, as you work towards stability. Because So a good example would be we will have a teenage mom who is doing a really great job. She's moving forward. She got her GED. She's gotten into community college, and then her mom relapses, and mom wants her to come home and care for younger siblings again. So she does because that's her role. Her job, in quotation, is to help her mom. So she quits school. We stop seeing her at Hope House, and she goes home and she starts caring for younger siblings. And then as mom maybe comes out, goes back into, becomes more healthy, we see her back at Hope House again. So there's this cycle of caring for those around them and being sucked into their life. And as our teen moms gain more upward mobility and they finish school and they start, earning some income, suddenly all these family members come out of the woodwork that want you to help pay their rent and need you to give them a ride here or there. And learning to set those boundaries. That's why I talk about personal growth, because learning to set those boundaries is so hard, because these are your family members and you love them, even if you know they are unhealthy and that it's unfair. So beginning to really what's totally critical is for them to begin to see themselves the way God sees them and for them to begin to see how God views them as so worthy and so beautiful and so strong. And as their kind of lens shifts and they're able to see themselves a little differently and see their value and their worth, it makes them stronger to be able to say no to things that they need to say no to in their family dynamics.
Yeah. Well, tell us more about your book, A Place to Belong.
So writing A Place to Belong is so funny because really kind of the core tenet of the book is what if you said yes? What if God's just knocking on your heart and kind of something just weighs on you, like you heard something at church or there's just something you can't get out of your mind. And it might not be teenage moms, it might be something totally different, but something that's just kind of captured your heart. But we're so quick as women to say, who me? I like your daughter. What my testimony? Like that's our first thought is, but I can't, I'm just this, or I'm just that, or how could I do this or that? And so kind of the premise is what if I did just say yes and tell my testimony, even though it's scary, or just say yes to, in my case, opening a home for teenage moms, even when I had no credentials or background that qualified me to do so. Um, and it was really actually hard to say yes to writing this book, even though I knew God was saying do it. I talk a lot about being a teen mom, but I have not publicly shared a lot of my background or my family story. And so that was really scary to me. So even though the book is about say yes, I didn't say yes for 2 or 3 years. It took a while to get up the guts to say, okay, God, I hear you loud and clear. I'll write a book. And then it took 6 years to actually write. I worked with a beautiful author who helped me so much, but we have been very busy at Hope House building buildings and helping
Yeah.
more teen moms. And so it was hard to write a book on the side. But mostly I'm just excited for people to read the crazy miracles that God did in providing for Hope House and building Hope House for our mamas. Because I think today as believers, we sometimes feel like true miracles really only happened in the Bible or maybe overseas, but not in our own backyard or in our own lives. And so I just am so, so privileged to share stories of how God still today does miracles in our own lives.
Oh, that's cool. So, A Place to Belong, are you referring then to the Hope House?
Yes, yes. So just as uh, at the Teen Mops group, our moms felt like they had a place to belong coming in. Now at Hope House, our moms walk in the door and they feel warm, they feel loved on right away. Everybody's smiling, everybody's engaging with them. It truly is their safe place where there's no judgment, there's no shame. We believe in you wholeheartedly and know you can do it. And this is their place to belong.
That's cool. And do you find that some of them, as they get older and they get, like you said, a college degree and jobs and whatnot, I would imagine some even get married. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So do you find some of them come back to really work with you, help you, volunteer, that kind of thing?
Yeah, such a great question. We have one of our program managers is an alumni of our program. Our housing navigator is an alumni of our residential program. Our GED and high school coordinator is an alumni of that program. We have a total of eight of our alumni working for the organization, and one of them serving on our board of directors. And lots of them volunteer or give back, on a small basis, like maybe it's $5 a month because they're still early in their
Mhm.
careers, but they definitely want to invest back into the younger moms coming behind them.
Oh, that's great. Wow. So I wish I could see this beautiful campus, huh?
Next time you're in Colorado, you will have to stop by. I would love to show it off. We are also at the beginning stages of national expansion. So if any of your listeners just have a huge heart for teenage moms and want to open a home near you or where they live, we have three homes in Colorado and one opening in Orange County, California, and we'll come alongside you and help you to make your vision a reality if that's something you feel called to.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, thank you. This is awesome. I'm sure that it's been very fulfilling for you, and you're
It's
glad
it's
that you
a
said yes.
Yes, it's a beautiful adventure. I'm glad I said yes. Thank you so much for having me today, Sue.
Yeah, for sure. So y'all might want to look into that. How would they look into that? Where would they find you?
You can find us on our website at hopehousecolorado.org, O-R-G, and you can find information about what we do as well as information about our affiliate program.
That's awesome. Awesome. You might have someone knocking on the door saying, "Can I work for you?"
I
That'd
hope
be
so.
great. Yeah, I do too. Especially those of you who are out there, please go check it out. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Lisa. And y'all just if you know people, especially out in the area, go ahead and tell them and maybe they can stop by and they'll get a vision and can help out. And yes, that's great. Okay, y'all
Thank you.
have a great week and we'll see you back next week.